Have you ever wondered why our elders say that not everything that glitters is gold? Some gold is not dug from the earth, my friend. Some gold is dug from the graves of the restless, from the cold fingers of men who refuse to leave this world quietly, from contracts written not in ink, but in blood. Today, I will tell you the story of a young woman named Osinachi, a beauty so rare, the sun itself would turn to look at her twice. A woman who thought she had found a blessing, a rich man, a fine man, a man who drove a car that cost more than her entire village had ever seen. She thought she was walking into a palace, but she was walking into a grave, because the man putting that ring on her finger was already rotting in the morgue, and his only reason for coming back to the land of the living was her womb. But here's the part that will shake you. The part our elders do not always tell you when they start the story. Osinachi knew something was wrong. Deep inside, underneath the designer lace and the gold jewelry and the applause of the whole village, she knew, but she chose the ring anyway. And that choice would cost her everything. Wait, before we enter the land of the dead together, if you are new here, like this video right now, hit that button. You don't know what's about to hit you, and you will want to come back. Subscribe to this channel so that the elder stories find you every single time we gather around this fire. Share this with someone, a sister, a friend, a cousin who is about to rush into a marriage they don't fully understand. This story might save a life tonight. Are you ready? Then sit down, get comfortable, and whatever you do, do not let the children watch this alone. It was a Saturday, the kind of Saturday that makes a mother close her eyes and say, God has remembered me. The compound of Mama Osinachi had never looked so beautiful in all its years standing on that red earth. There were white canopies. There were plastic chairs in every color. There were trays of hot food and cold drinks, and men in agbada and women in the finest Ankara fabric that money could buy. And standing in the center of it all, Osinachi, 26 years old, dressed in gold and white, her head held high, her smile so wide it could light up 3 rooms. But let me tell you something about that smile. It was not entirely real, because 3 days before this wedding, Osinachi had been sitting alone in her room when a thought came to her. A thought she did not invite. A thought that arrived the way unwelcome guests always do, quietly, without knocking, and refusing to leave. She had been looking at a photograph of Obi, her groom, her billionaire, her ticket out of the ordinary life she had always resented, and she had felt it. Cold. Not a cold she could explain. Not a cold from the harmattan or fan left on too long. A cold that came from the photograph itself. From something in his eyes in that image that did not look like the eyes of the living. She had held the photograph at arm's length. She had put it face down on the table. And she had told herself, she had looked herself directly in the mirror and said, Osinachi, you are not going to ruin this for yourself. You have prayed for this for years. This man is your breakthrough. Don't let your fears talk you out of your destiny. And she had picked up the photograph again and put it back on her dresser. That was her first choice. And every choice that came after it was a harvest of that one seed she planted in herself that night. Now here she stood, in gold and white, smiling her not entirely real smile. And Mama was beside herself with joy. She had been praying for this day for years. She had fasted. She had gone to the mountain. She had made promises to God and to the ancestors. And now here it was, her daughter, her Osinachi, about to be taken by a man of means. And then, a scream ripped through the celebration like a machete through cloth. Stop it. Mama, stop this wedding. Can't you see? The man you are all waiting for, he is not coming from any city of gold. He is not coming from Lagos. He is not coming from Abuja. He is coming from the land of the dead. This man is a ghost. My people, I am telling you, this man is already dead. The music stopped. The dancing stopped. Plates were lowered. Conversations died. Every eye in that compound turned toward Amaka, 23 years old, the younger sister, standing there with her hand pointing toward the gate, her whole body shaking like a leaf in a storm, tears pouring down her face like she had seen something the rest of them simply could not see. And Mama walked across that compound with fire in her eyes and raised her hand. Shut your mouth, you jealous girl, because your sister has found a man, a real man, and you are still single and useless. You have come here to embarrass this family? Today of all days? Keep your fake prophesies to yourself. The slap landed hard. Amaka held her cheek. She looked at her mother. She looked at Osinachi. And Osinachi, standing there in her gold and white, her eyes cold as stone, spoke. Amaka, if you enter this compound again today, I will treat you like a complete stranger. My husband is an Odogu, a king among men. Don't you dare ruin my destiny with your jealousy and your fake visions. Don't you dare. Here is what you must understand. Osinachi had just heard her own conscience speak. Amaka was not just a jealous sister shouting at a gate. Amaka was the voice of everything Osinachi had pushed down 3 nights ago when she put that cold photograph back on her dresser. Amaka was the last exit on a road that only went one direction. And Osinachi looked at that exit and chose to drive past it. She drove past it in gold and white, with her head held high, and the music playing, and the crowd cheering, and the flies circled slowly above the gate. And no one said a word. Let me take you back 3 hours before that wedding began. Because the story of how Obi became a ghost groom did not start at the altar. It started on a road. Obi was a man who had lived 10 years in excess. 10 years of contract that should not have been won. 10 years of wealth that had a price tag he had never read in full. He had eaten from a table that was not set for him. He had drunk from a cup that had a clause. And that Saturday morning, dressed in his finest kaftan, driving his imported car toward the woman he intended to take as a vessel, a figure appeared inside the car, dressed in white, still as still can be, a woman, or something that wore the shape of a woman, with eyes like still water. Obi, your 10 years are finished. The bullet of death that was fired the day you made your covenant has found its mark. You must drop dead. Now. And Obi felt it, like a cord being cut, like a door slamming shut somewhere deep inside him. But Obi was not a man who accepted anything quietly. No, not today. Let me go, plant my seed in that girl, and I will reincarnate in 9 months to enjoy my money again. Just let me finish this O&E thing. The spirit mother looked at him, and then she was gone. Obi's body slumped forward. His hands went limp. His eyes went still. Obi was dead, but then a shadow sat up where a body had just collapsed. It straightened its kaftan. It adjusted its cap. And it smiled, slow, patient, wicked, because Obi was not finished. Obi was just beginning. When Obi's car pulled through the gate, the crowd erupted. He stepped out, tall, immaculate, smiling the smile of a man with no worries. Only a marker, standing at the far edge of the crowd before she was chased away, so the flies circling his head like a slow, invisible crown. And his shadow, stretching out long in the wrong direction, pointing toward the ground like a finger reaching for something underground. The bride price was paid. The cold, crisp notes passed from hand to hand. And the women who touched that money noticed, but did not speak, that the notes felt strange, heavy, cold, like they had been stored somewhere without warmth, without air, without life. Nobody spoke it aloud, because Osinachi looked so happy. And that is the most dangerous thing about greed. Not that it blinds a person who has it, but that everyone around them goes blind too, out of love, out of politeness, out of their own quiet hunger for the happiness they see on someone else's face. The wedding continued, and Obi, the ghost, the dead man, the vessel wearing flesh, sat at the high table and smiled at his bride. That night, in a hotel room that should have been warm with celebration, Osinachi sat across from her husband and felt the cold press against her chest like a hand. The room was freezing, and Obi had not touched his food. Not a single bite. Husband, why is the room so cold? And your food? You have not even looked at your food. Come, eat. It is our night. I don't need food, Osinachi. I have not needed food for some time now. I only need one thing, and it is already done. I have planted a seed in you tonight. In 9 months, I will return through that child. I will pick up everything I left behind. But you will not be here to see it. You were never meant to stay. You are only the vessel. And then he was gone. Not through the door. Not through the window. Just gone. And Osinachi turned to the mirror. And in the reflection, standing behind where her husband had sat, she did not see a man in a kaftan. She saw a corpse. Rutting. Lips pulled back. Fingers like sticks wrapped in old skin. Osinachi opened her mouth and screamed until the walls shook. But when she turned around, the chair was empty. And the room was just a room. Cold and silent and utterly, devastatingly alone. She did not tell anyone. Not for 3 days. Because telling someone would make it real. And Osinachi had spent her whole life being a woman who handled things herself. A woman who did not cry in public. A woman who looked at problems and solved them. So she went to the pharmacy. Alone. Hood pulled low over her face. She had searched the internet the night before with shaking hands. She knew what to buy. She knew the dosage. She had read enough to believe that this thing inside her, whatever it was, could be handled the same way any other unwanted thing was handled. She paid for the drugs. She walked home quickly. She locked her bedroom door. She took the first tablet. She waited. She took the second. She waited. She took everything the packet said would work. And nothing happened. Not a cramp. Not a sign. Nothing. She felt completely normal, which was the most terrifying thing of all. Because she was not normal. Something was growing inside her that did not belong to the natural world. And the natural world's medicine could not reach it. She stared at the empty packet. She stared at her own hands. And for the first time since the night in the hotel room, she began to cry. Not the crying of a woman in pain. The crying of a woman beginning to understand what she had done. Because she remembered the cold photograph. She remembered the exit she had driven past. She remembered Amaka's face when the slap landed. And she sat on the edge of a bed, in a locked room, with an empty medicine packet in her lap, and she wept into her own silence. When the drugs failed, Osinachi told herself one more story. She said, "This is a medical issue. They are doctors. They are procedures. This is the 21st century. I will go to a hospital. I will explain. I will walk out of their fix." She dressed carefully. She chose a hospital 2 towns away. Far enough that no one would recognize her. Far enough that word would not reach Mama. Far enough from the shame of what she was about to ask a stranger to help her do. She sat in the waiting room. She filled out the forms. Her hands were steady now. She had made a decision, and decisions always made her hands steady. The doctor called her name. She went in. She sat down. She began to explain. And she watched the doctor's face change. Not in the way faces change when they are listening. Not with concern or concentration or the careful neutrality doctors are trained to wear. His face changed the way a person's face changes when they are being spoken to by someone they cannot see. His eyes went slightly unfocused. His hand, which had been poised over his notepad, slowly lowered. He stared at a point just past Osinachi's shoulder. His lips parted, and he said nothing for so long that Osinachi leaned forward. Doctor, are you all right? The doctor blinked. He looked at her, and the expression that settled on his face was not one a doctor should ever wear in front of a patient. It was fear. I cannot help you. I am sorry. I cannot help you with this. Please, please leave my office. Leave now. I cannot be involved in this. You need to leave. Osinachi stood up slowly. What are you talking about? You haven't even examined me. You don't even know what I'm. Leave. I said leave. There's a man standing behind you, and he is telling me what will happen to me and my family if I touch you. I cannot see him, but I can hear him. Whatever is inside you, that is not mine to remove. Go. Please. Go. Osinachi turned around. There was nothing behind her. Nothing the living could see. But she felt him. The cold. That same cold from the hotel room, pressing against the back of her neck. Breathing. Waiting. The receptionist was already at the door. Osinachi was guided out. Her file returned to her. The appointment struck off the system like she had never been there. She sat in her car in the hospital car park for 40 minutes. She did not start the engine. She did not cry. She just sat there, because she was beginning to understand something that the pharmacy had suggested and the hotel room had confirmed, and this hospital had now declared as absolute fact. This was not a problem that the living world could solve. She had married something dead, and something dead was playing by completely different rules. She started the car, and she drove to find the wise one. The wise one sat at the edge of the forest the way old trees sit, like he had been there so long the ground had simply grown up around him. He did not look surprised when Osinachi came. He looked at her the way you look at someone you have been waiting for. He did not ask questions. He burned something in a clay pot. He listened to whatever spoke to him in the smoke. And then he looked up. Your daughter is with child for a ghost. The man she married was already dead when he entered this compound. What grows inside her is not a human child. It is his reincarnation. On the day she gives birth, the very moment that child draws its first breath, it will take her last. She will die on the table that brings him back to life. Osinachi sat with that for a moment, the way you sit with a verdict you already knew was coming. Then she spoke. Then help me remove it. I will take every herb you have. I tried the drugs. Nothing happened. I went to a hospital. He chased the doctor away. Tell me what to do and I will do it tonight. He has placed a spiritual lock on your womb. No herb, no medicine, no doctor's hand can break what he sealed with a covenant of death. But there are two paths. One path is painful and shameful. The other path is dangerous and may cost you your life. You must choose. Tell me both. The first path. There's a man in this town. A man the spirits do not track. A man whose mind is broken so completely that the spirit world cannot read his bloodline. A madman. If you go to him and lie with him, the confusion of his seed mixing with a dead man's seed will disturb the spirit's anchor. The ghost will lose his grip on your womb. He may release. He may not. But it is the fastest path. Osinachi looked at the wise one for a long time. And in that silence, you could hear every single thing she had been in her life. The pride, the ambition, the vanity, the hunger for a life bigger than the compound she grew up in. You could hear all of it cracking under the weight of what this man had just said. This was the price of her choice. Not a small price. Not a quiet price paid in private where no one would see. This was a price so grotesque, so humiliating, so contrary to everything Osinachi believed about who she was, that it could only have been designed by something that wanted her to suffer in the specific shape of her pride. Because Osinachi had chased status. She had chased a man of wealth. She had chosen a ring over her own instincts. She had slapped her sister's name in front of the whole village. And now she was being told that the only way out might be to lie with a broken man in a broken street. She closed her eyes. What is the second path? The second path, you face him yourself. You go into the forest at midnight. You bind his spirit to the sacred tree. And you wrestle the ghost with your own hands, your own will, your own voice. It is more dangerous, but at least it is yours. Show me where the madman is. I want you to understand what it cost Osinachi to walk down that street. She had dressed as plainly as she owned clothes to dress. She had left the phone at home. She had told no one where she was going. Not Mama, not Amaka, especially not Amaka, because she could not bear for Amaka to know this part. She could chase Amaka out of a wedding compound. She could call her mad and jealous in front of the whole village. But she could not stand in front of her sister and say, I'm about to do this thing because I was too proud to listen to you. She found him on the street behind the market. An old man, gray-bearded, rags on his back, eyes that looked at everything and nothing at the same time, the eyes of a person whose mind lives somewhere the rest of us cannot follow. She stood before him. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to press them against her sides to hold them still. And she did what the wise one told her to do. She walked home alone, in the dark, before the roosters crowed. And she lay on her bed and stared at the ceiling. And she waited. For 3 days, she waited. She went back to the wise one on the 4th day, and the look on the old man's face told her everything before he opened his mouth. The ghost is still there. The seed is still locked. The madman's bloodline confused and briefly. I felt the spirit shake. But Obi is too strong, too anchored. The lock held. That path is closed. Osinachi sat in the dust in front of the shrine. Just Saturday, not crying, past the point of crying. Think about what she had endured in the space of a few weeks. She had discovered her husband was a dead man. She had taken drugs that did nothing. She had sat in a hospital while a doctor pressed himself against the wall and begged her to leave because a ghost was standing behind her chair. She had done something she would never speak aloud for the rest of her life. And it had every single bit of it, come to nothing. This is a harvest of a seed planted in pride and greed, and the refusal to hear the truth when it was shouted at you in a wedding compound on a Saturday morning. This is what it looks like when the bill comes due. What is left? Tell me the second path. I have nothing else. The second path is a forest path. You must go yourself. Bind his spirit to the sacred Iroko tree with red thread. Call his name 3 times. And when he comes, and he will come, you must not run. You must stand. You must speak your rejection into his face with a voice that comes from the deepest part of who you are, not from your mouth, from your soul. If your soul is strong enough, the binding will hold and his anchor in your womb will break. If your soul is not strong enough, I will die. You may die either way, but this is a path that is yours to walk. Osinachi stood up. She smoothed her wrapper. She straightened her back, and she said, "Give me the red thread." She went at midnight, with only a lantern, Obi's photograph wrapped in red thread, and the whole weight of every wrong choice she had ever made pressing down on her shoulders like a stone. She found the sacred Iroko tree at the heart of the forest. She wrapped the photograph to the bark. She said his name, once, twice, 3 times, and the world went silent. The wind died, the cricket stopped, even the sound of her own heartbeat seemed to disappear, and in that absolute, airless silence, Obi came. He built himself out of the darkness between the trees, piece by piece, limb by limb, until he stood before her. Not the man in the kaftan, not the polished stranger with the cold money. The real Obi. What remained of him? How dare you chain me to a common tree? You, a woman who chose me. You begged for my ring. You chased your own sister out of your compound for me. You opened your own door and invited death in, and now you want to fight me? I am already inside you. I am the child you carry. I am the breath your body is feeding every night. You cannot reject what you already accepted. Osinachi. You cannot. And Osinachi felt the truth of those words hit her. Every single one of them. Because he was not wrong. She had opened the door. She had kept the photograph on the dresser. She had driven past the exit. She had silenced the only voice that loved her enough to tell the truth. She had done all of this. And standing in a dark forest at midnight, with a dead man's rage filling the air around her, she finally, fully, completely let herself know it. Not to punish herself, but to free herself. Because you cannot fight a lie you are still telling yourself. She looked at the ghost of Obi, this hollow, greedy, death-stained thing that had used to hunger against her, and something that had been bent in her for years, straightened. You are right. I opened the door. I chose the ring when I should have chosen the truth. I chased away the person who loved me. I planted my own trap and walked into it with my eyes open. I know all of that. I am not hiding from it. But hear me now. I am Osinachi, a daughter of this earth. And I reject you. I reject your seed. I reject your contract. I reject everything you put in me. If I must bleed for this, I will bleed. If I must die for this, I will die standing. But you will never walk this earth again through me. Never. The ghost screamed, and footsteps crashed through the trees behind her. A marker. She had followed, because she always followed. Because that is what love that has been beaten and insulted and chased away still does when it is real. It follows you into the dark anyway. She was holding her Bible above her head, and she was not whispering. By the power in the name that is above every name. You spirit of darkness, you spirit of greed, you spirit of a dead man's selfishness. I rebuke you. The womb of my sister is not your door. It is not your vehicle. You have no authority here. Blood of Jesus. Blood of Jesus. Go back to the pit. By fire, by force. Release her. Leave her now. The forest went white. A white that came from inside the air itself. And Obi screamed. Not the roar of something powerful. The scream of something that had been found out. That had been dragged into the only light it could not survive. He was pulled down. Into the red earth. Into the dark that had been waiting for him since the very first crooked deal he ever made. And then, silence. And Osinachi felt something leave her body. Released. Like a breath held far, far too long, finally let go. She crumpled to the forest floor, and a marker caught her. When the sun rose, Osinachi was weak. She could barely lift her head. Her body had been a battlefield, and battlefields take time to recover. But she was alive. She was breathing. She was here. A marker sat beside her without speaking, just holding her hand. Just there. The way love looks when it has stripped away every layer of pride and jealousy and competition, and reduced itself down to the one thing that was always true underneath. I am your sister. I am not going anywhere. Mama came in the morning, and Mama did not sit down. Mama got on her knees, on the bare floor, in front of her younger daughter. This woman she had slapped. This woman she had called mad and jealous. This woman she had chased out of the compound while a dead man walked through the gate. Mama got on her knees, and she wept. Amaka, my child, forgive me. I let gold blind me. I let pride deaf me. I almost buried your sister because I did not want to hear the truth. Because I wanted the big car and the bride price so badly that I slapped the only person whose eyes were open. Forgive your foolish mother. Forgive me. Amaka looked at her mother for a long time, and then she pulled her up off the floor and held her. That is grace. That is a terrifying, beautiful thing that makes us human. The ability to hold a person who hurt us, because love is always bigger than the wound. Osinachi survived, but she came out of that season a different woman. Not smaller, not broken, but but carved. The way wood is carved, shaped by a blade into something that could not have existed without the cutting. She learned what greed does to a person. Not just greed for money, greed for status, greed for the feeling of being chosen by something impressive. The kind of greed that makes you keep a cold photograph on your dresser because you refuse to let go of the dream it represents, even when your own skin is warning you. She learned what it costs to silence the people who love you. Not a small cost, not a quiet cost paid in private, a cost extracted with interest, in shame, in pain, in degrading trials on dark streets, in hospital corridors where doctors press themselves against walls and beg you to leave because a dead man is standing behind your chair. She learned that the truth you refuse to hear in the morning always finds you at midnight. She learned that the person you humiliate in public to protect your pride will be the same person who runs into the dark forest without being asked to pull you back from the edge of your own destruction. And she learned something about herself, something she had to stand in front of a ghost and say out loud before it became real. That healing does not begin with blaming the dead man who deceived you. It begins with owning the door you opened, the photograph you kept, the exit you chose to drive past. Because accountability is not the same as self-punishment. It is the first breath of a free person. Our elders say, the bird that flies too high in the morning may find itself in the hawk's country before noon. But they also say, even the bird that flies into the hawk's country can come home if it is willing to fly low enough to find the road back. Osinachi came home. Not the same, never the same, but alive, and free, and wiser than any amount of money could have made her. Watch who you marry, my friend. Watch what you keep on your dresser. Watch which exits you drive past. And be grateful, deeply, profoundly grateful, for the person in your life who keeps following you into the dark forest even after you told them to stay home. That person is worth more than every cold note and every bride price ever paid. Sleep well tonight. And that, my dear friends, is the end of tonight's story from the Elder's Fireplace. But before you go, I need to hear from you. At what point did you lose sympathy for Osinachi? Was it when she kept the cold photograph? When she slapped a marker's name in front of the village? Or did you understand her all the way to the end? And Mama, do you think a mother who wants the best for her child can be blamed for being blind to the truth? Or is that also greed, just wearing a different face? Drop your answers in the comments below. Every single one. I want this to be a real conversation around a real fire. If this story moved something inside you, if it made you think, made you feel, made you want to hold someone you love a little tighter tonight, then please hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second and it keeps this fire burning. Subscribe so that every time we gather at this fireplace, you are already seated when the story begins. And share this. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. Post it. Tag someone. Because somewhere right now, there's a person standing at a gate looking at a cold ring on a cold hand and trying to convince themselves that the chill they feel is just nerves. Maybe this story is exactly what they need tonight. Until we meet again, stay wise, stay whole, and may everything you bring into your home be truly, deeply, warmly alive.